Kimberly Crail is a wise woman, herbalist, and educator who came from Wall Street to the weeds. Casey's mission is to teach folks how to heal themselves using whole plants and foods as medicine. You can heal yourself with simple and inexpensive methods, foods, and herbs. And now, here's the host of Weeds of Wisdom, Kimberly Crail.
Hi, welcome to Weeds of Wisdom. I'm Kimberly Crail, the MBA CPA who went from Wall Street to the weeds. Now I teach herbal medicine. And so for my viewers who are here on the regular, you know that I believe that healing goes well beyond just foods and what you do with the body. There's so much more in terms of true healing. And that's healing of spirit, connection with spirit, and then the dance of the mind, and then, getting that mind medicine going, and then that ability to, intertwine all three. And so, health is really inherent in each being. We are created perfect, we're created whole, and we're created holy. And tonight is October the 7th. It's Tuesday, October the 7th. And my guest tonight we're going to be talking about death and the walk towards death. And that's a topic that many people don't want to talk about. It's not something that we really want to talk about unless and until we get some sort of a terminal diagnosis, or a family member gets a terminal diagnosis, or a pet gets a terminal diagnosis. I actually, one of my cats transitioned on Saturday morning, and it's a difficult thing. Birth is not the easiest process, and death sometimes is also not the easiest process, but they're both natural bookends to our earth walk. So my guest tonight is actually a Deathwalker. Her name's Paula Adams, or Deathwalker Paula. And we're going to be talking more about this topic and how you can support yourself or other loved ones if you find yourself or them on the walk towards death. And as a reminder, I came from Wall Street, so I understand the business model. And I understand that advertising is not free speech. It's they're allowed to lie. So essentially, the medical business model has no incentive to make people well, because then you would not be a customer. So really suggest that you expand your horizons beyond the traditional Western medical model when seeking healing for yourself. You're the only one that can heal yourself. And drugs do not build health. Every doctor will agree with that statement. And finally, be aware mind medicine is the most powerful. The placebo effect is based on mind medicine. And in our current environment, we have a little rectangular box that is a programming machine. It's called the television or the screen that you're watching. And so it's very easy to get programmed. And so just, when you connect with your wise healer within and when you're spirit, it's a whole different perspective. So that's what I always encourage folks to do. Now, Paula A., the Deathwalker, is a third generation Deathwalker, death talker. She's medical assistance in dying and euthanasia advocate, sacred shroud artist, earth wheel medicine, death planner, body channeling author, podcast host, and founder of Destiny's Door. Paula has the radical belief that death is holy. Paula walks beside those facing terminal illnesses, guiding them to choose the time, place, and manner of their passing. She channels energy through her own body, wrapping the dying in sacred shrouds, stitched with intention, and offering a one-of-a-kind earth wheel medicine death plan, designed to honor the elements, the soul's journey, and the sacred cycle of release. As an Earth Wheel medicine death planner, she helps individuals and families craft ceremonies that align with nature's rhythms, ancestral wisdom, and the soul's deepest truth. Paula walks with those who stand at the threshold, whether facing the end of life, navigating deep healing, integrating spiritual awakenings, or holding vigil beside a beloved. Paula's work is not confined to the dying moment. It is a sacred invitation to live more consciously, more fully, and meet change without fear. For generations, we've forgotten the sacred rhythm of life and death. Conversations around dying, spiritual emergence, and soul transitions have been silenced, leaving many unprepared, disconnected, and afraid. Paula helps restore what was lost. Through ritual-rooted care, ancestral remembrance, and soul-led planning, Paula guides individuals and families from fear into trust, from isolation into connection, and from uncertainty into peace. The impact ripples far beyond the bedside. It transforms how we live every single day. You can reach Paula on Facebook at Paula Adams 2, or check out her YouTube channel at Deathwalker Paula. I'm going to bring her on now. So welcome, Paula. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, Kim. I'm doing great. And welcome everybody who's here this evening. It's just quite an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor. I think it's one of the, death is not something we talk about or really think much about until, we have a terminal, or someone in our family has a terminal illness, and then everybody sort of freaks out, it seems. There's a lot of fear around death. And the dying, process, again, I'm not a big fan of Western medicine, but, it really is not designed to support the transition process, should we say. But let's, before we really get too far down the track on that, talk a little bit about your story and your, journey to bring you to the work that you're doing. And so I know that you have a lot of family connections, and so maybe just talk a little bit about your story.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, my name is Paula, of course, and I grew up in a matriarch family. My grams and my mom were my strongest allies growing up. Big family, 10 kids. My dad, he was a very, very good soul and a very, very good human. And he gave me a great admiration for that male energy, that very strong male energy. Didn't quite tap into the female energy a lot, but that's what I had my moms and my grams for. Death was a common conversation when I was growing up. We grew up on a farm. And every day there was a sick cow. We had to put a horse down. Our multiple of dogs had litters of puppies. And there was always one in that litter that I knew at a very early age. I sensed that, I would be with anything that was dying. Any entity that is in this time and place on earth, I am drawn to the dying aspect of it. Not to say that I don't celebrate life, absolutely. But when I watched the puppy for the first time, I noticed that it was isolated and it was kind of pushed off to the side. And that's partly nature, and we can't forget that. The mother had 9 puppies, and 8 of them would be fine, but 1 was not. And so as a soul being, I felt the need to be with that other soul entity. I know it was a dog, but nonetheless, it is a soul entity. And so my mom and my grams picked up on it, right away. And so they guided me. My grandmother was a shaman medicine woman for the Hopi tribe. So our family grew up on what Kim talks about, the plant medicines, the natural sustenances that were put on this earth to sustain us all. my grams used to tell me there's a plant on this earth for every ailment that we have. We just have to know how to connect with the plant, not only as a human being, but as a connected entity to that plant. And that includes connecting the mind, body, and spirit, as we call it, the Holy Trinity. And when you connect with that plant, then you kind of connect with the four corners of what my background is based on. The elements, there's four elements. We have the four directions. We have the four levels of what my family considered, from birth to living your life to being at that stage where the body is starting to shut down, and then the actual expiration of the vessel that we are so blessed to carry. It's a beautiful entity, and it's given to us freely when we come into this place. And that's kind of sort of what I was taught. There was never fear around death. It was as important as life. And, you know, we were always taught that it was entwined. As I grew up, it always stayed with me. I went through several early transitions in my childhood where, as you can imagine, you know, I got called all kinds of lovely names and stuff like that. But the one thing I will say is I was very privileged. The first time to walk someone was with my grandmother, and I was 8 years old. And I knew at that time, this was it. This was my calling. Even if it went dormant, even if I shied away from it, I knew I could never, ever not have the calling be a part of me. Over the course of the years, I carried it with me. I raised 3 children. I raised 3 other children through foster system, and my children were raised on good food, good plant medicine, but more importantly, I taught my children pretty early to look into themselves, just like I did. I was taught, we call it meditation. Back then, I don't think my grams and my mom had quite that elegant of a word for it. It might have been more like our discipline.
Or ceremony. Or
or, you know, hey, we're going to all go to ritual, and, you know, this is what we do every day at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock or whatever the times were when I was a child. And so we were taught that. We were taught to go inside of ourselves, and being kids, it was beautiful because we were told to imagine what our blood looked like flowing from every part of our body, how it went through the tendons, and, you know, what the color would be, and what all the organs looked like, and to really give value to the vessel that we're given. And when you give value to that, I was taught you carry that value all the way up until the vessel has its expiration date, which nobody gets a clue of. Nobody. And that's the brilliance with death. I mean, you know, and so, like I said, I raised my kids that way. And I was also taught to read and learn. And that meant learning what was in front of me, but also learn what was passed down to me through generations. And one of the things that was passed down through my heritage, and, you know, I'm very blessed and I'm very honored. Part of it is actually good genes that we were just as star seeds given. But my family honored that moment when we got into the vessel. We understood that, you know, life here was more than just the common everyday things that we did. There was a vessel that you needed to maintain. And if you maintained that, and if you found the inner, like you call it, the inner holiness of us, the God that is in within is the way I like to call it. Then, and if you can get those together and then bring the beautiful mind that we have, that is nothing more than one big computer. And it will find a problem for you if you don't have one. That's just what it does, because it likes to solve things. That's what our brain likes to do. We're taught to solve problems.
Yeah, the left hemisphere of the brain is very much a linear, dualistic, oh my gosh, right and wrong, life and death, and that whole separation thing. It just it doesn't have the ability to see in the holographic way of the right hemisphere in terms of the interconnectedness of all things. So yeah, so I completely hear that. And it's interesting. I had Dale Allen on my show, and she has done a film and a book called In Our Right Minds.
Yes.
And she talks about, and we've talked about how when writing became, widespread as a method of communication, it actually changed the way our brains work. Mm-hmm. We moved from this right hemisphere into our left hemispheres, and we have sort of let that right hemisphere atrophy. And so I found that really fascinating discussion. And, to your point earlier, I completely agree. Life and death are lovers. And, everything that is born will die and be reborn again. This is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And in our tradition, wise woman tradition, we see that there are two big forces. There's what we call the life force, which is the breath that is the vessels. It is the life force is what animates the vessel. But the soul force is the eternal, that source, God, and that is eternal. But the life force has an expiration date, which is the expiration date of the physical body. And so there is a struggle between the life force because it does not want to give up its vessel, right? Because it will cease. But the soul force is like, who cares? We're eternal. What's the problem? So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. And I think that is helpful, at least for me, when I think about really what is going on with our bodies and our spirits and with the whole death process. So.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. And that was one thing that, growing up, both my mom, almost all the elders in my family reminded us constantly is that be careful what the outside forces are that are steering you into one particular area. For instance, the left part of the brain thinking and processing. And they reminded us every time when we were playing with each other, arguing with each other, whatever we were doing, that it's the whole part of us that needs to be working every day. Not the human ego part, not just the conform, do what we tell you to do part. All that is part of the experience of how my grams used to say was, when you were brought here, it wasn't just because you were, bored and you didn't have anything to do. You came in this time and place and in this particular dimension because there's a purpose, a lesson for you to be in this vessel, to take care of this vessel, to appreciate it, to understand the enormous gift that we are given. We live in a closed environment, at least in the solar system that we know of, in the universe that we know of. And time again has told you everything that lives dies. And when we say die, we have to redefine that word. We have to start redefining death. It can't be as a failure. It can't be something that we try to avert on every surface of this time and place. I mean, between the advertising and the makeup and the Botoxes.
Or impose as a punishment, the ultimate punishment, and the ultimate thing to be shunned and feared. Yeah, I completely agree. It's
Yeah.
completely been distorted, and and for somebody's purpose, right? I mean, somebody's
Right.
always got an angle,
Yeah.
and
And it's not to be a better human being. It's not to move our species to a greater, next level of consciousness. No, this has something to do with what is fundamentally the opposite of what my parents and everything that I was bringing up. And that's the negative connotation of not respecting the vessel, of not honoring the mind space and the soul space and the life force and everything that makes us each uniquely our own on this planet. And so I think that we got the life part, we got the birth part going pretty good. I mean, everybody celebrates that. People buy new houses and they redo the rooms and we have gender reveals.
And we do it as in the most unnatural possible way, with the woman flat on her back, fighting gravity with her legs in the air, and that's for
and strapped down and medicated, and and again, we have gotten away from what I believe is not only natural rhythm rituals that the body knows what to do. The body is an intelligent bioorganic being.
Yes.
And the spiritual force that you speak of, that's just something that we get to ride around in. This is something, but it's fully a bioorganic connected to this planet in this time and place. When your body gives up the ghost, so to speak, it, in most cases, whether you put it in a coffin or you put it in a shroud or you just bury it in your backyard, the bioorganicness of the vessel, it decomposes and goes back into the earth and brings life again.
Yes.
And for us to honor that, absolutely. But for it to be the main priority and leave that soul force just hanging, nah. That's the part where my grams and my mom would say that's a bad death. That's that's a bad ending to probably what was a starseed cosmic divinity person that was here, and they just gave up everything. They didn't expand, they didn't do anything. And a lot of it, like you said, it gets caught up.
Next time. The way it's funny because I remember, the elders, teach that words really don't teach. Experience teaches.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe that in most indigenous cultures, the elders are revered and their counsel is taken under very serious advisement.
Absolutely.
But I also don't believe that we have that same honor and respect for our elders today. I mean, how many times do I hear that "okay, boomer," kind of thing? And
absolutely.
And I'm not even ancient. I mean, really, and then people are like, "Oh, how?" They're like challenging me on. I tell them, cook your vegetables well and eat your meat and dairy as raw as possible. And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, ask your grandmother how she cooked her green beans. Did she lightly steam them? No. She probably cooked them for hours with bacon fat.
And a big old pat of the bacon that we got off of our farm."
Right.
But again, one of the things that I carry with me, and even my children, of course, are in the millennial category that we call. But when people look at my children, they don't see the millennial. You know what I'm saying? They don't see that stereotype. And why don't they see that? Because my children weren't taught to look at people as labels, as millennial, baby boomers. My children were taught to look at generations, the people themselves, the elders, the second, the third. It's kind of a hierarchy, yes, but nonetheless, that's what gave us the revere. That's what gave us the honor and the respect. They knew what they were talking about. They had experiences. And I remind my children all the time, my parents, my mom and Grams, they had a better life than my great grandmother did. She was the silent generation.
Right.
And I can't imagine what it was like for her to be a medicine woman in those times. I just can't. So going back to what you were saying, I think that we are very selective as a collective as to what we're going to put our energy in and what we're going to blow apart as any form of future knowledge of ancient wisdom, anything like that, because it doesn't fit whatever the construct of the times that are going on.
The mind control narrative.
Yeah.
We're going to talk some more about that. We're just going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with my guest, Deathwalker Paula. So come right back. Just hang on, folks. We'll be right back.
Gotcha.
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path, and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
Hi, this is Kimberly Crail, KC the Wise Woman, and this is Weeds of Wisdom on Tuesday, October 7th. And so I'm going to continue our conversation with our guest tonight, Paula the Death Walker. So Paula, I appreciate so much the work that you do. I actually had an opportunity to study as a death doula for a time. However, I didn't finish that course because it happened during the COVID. And in order to get my certification, I would have required bedside hours, which would have required me to get up and and I was unwilling to do that. And we're on YouTube, so I can't say those words. But that was why I sort of abandoned it. But I lost my mother in 2018. And my observation, having had to set my hair on fire, I don't know, a dozen times or so just to get her proper medical care. And then we did the hospice thing, and she elected not to do more chemo, et cetera, and so on. And, but the medical system was just infuriating. And, I looked around, and I'm here in Florida, as you are. And the joke about St. Petersburg is it's all newlyweds and nearly deads. There's
Yes, it is.
population. And so as I looked around the hospital, I saw so many other older folks with no one there to advocate for them, to make sure that, oh gosh, she's dehydrated. Why is her pulse ox down to 60? Oh, you didn't notice that because, you weren't monitoring that on your fancy gadget machine. Oh, because you took her IV out last night, but you didn't check to see that she not drank any water all night long. It's like, it's so infuriating. And so one of the things that I'd love to be able to do would be to have some sort of a organization for people who have parents that are out of state, to be able to hire people to advocate for them, to actually go in and pull the medical records and deal with the medical staff. I mean, and since COVID, it's gotten so much worse, in my opinion, in terms of the hospital protocols, that I can't even imagine the experience. And, the other thing that I will say as we get into this is, when you survey people, and this has been true for the last 20, 30 years, but when you survey people, 90% or more of them say, gee, if I have to die, I would prefer to die at home. Mm-hmm. Like everybody, like my mom's like, I really want to die at home. Okay, Mom, I sold my house in Long Island. I moved to Florida. We made that a reality. Mm-hmm. And so a hospice can only go so far into helping that happen. But the death doulas are the ones I think that really can help fill that gap, not for the dying person, but also for the family and for the caregivers. So can you talk a little bit about the work that you do in terms of now, and actually, before I do that, let me just educate the audience a little bit about what we're talking about. First of all, there are ancient archetypes around life, death, and rebirth, and they all happen in circles of 3, and they all involve women. So go figure. So take from that what you will. The fates, the graces, the Morai, the Norns in the Norse traditions, but the Greeks called them the fates. And so Clotho is the one who spins the thread of life force that she plucks from the cauldron of chaos. And then she hands it to her sister Lachesis. And Lachesis is the one who measures the life force. So she's the one who governs allots the thread during your earth walk. And then Atropos is the one who has the shears, and she's the one who cuts the thread and then deposits it back into the cauldron of chaos. So this life, death, rebirth theme is not something new or new agey, right? This is ancient wisdom, first of all. And then just as a practical matter, there are sort of, if you will, 3 stages of dying. And by the way, death is a natural process, as is birth. It's holy. Yes. It can be difficult and it can be painful, or it can be easy and relatively painless. But typically the terminally ill will go through these 3 phases in their dying process. There's going to be the shock phase, and that's like, oh my gosh, I've just gotten diagnosed, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety. You identify any acute issues going on. You get the pain managed. You make sure that they're in a safe space. You get the family and friends notified. You get the support systems identified, et cetera, and so on. And then there's the stabilization phase. So once the patient's pain has been managed and their support network is in place, then this is really the period of time that the dying person can manifest some opportunities to help them get closure, peace, forgiveness, or whatever it is that they need to do with the family. And then there's the actual transition phase, and that essentially begins when the patient loses interest in eating and starts to sleep most of the time. Sometimes they'll be in and out between the worlds. They'll be talking to people that we cannot see. In my mother's case, she was, when she came out of one of those phases, she says, I keep seeing the number 9. What does that mean? And I was like, okay, 9. Well, it's the number of completion. It's, 3 times 3. It's a very powerful number. And so when the 9th came around, I didn't dare leave the house because I figured she might transition on the 9th. It turns out she ended up dying at 9 a.m. I was like, oh, okay, that was it.
Yeah.
So, but talk more about what death doulas actually do. So,
well, from my perspective, the one thing that I am called most upon is what you were talking about. The very first thing that I get called upon is to help them talk to their doctors, their medical doctors, about the mystical, metaphysical side that I offer. How I can help them talk to their doctors and say, this is very important to me now. One of the things that my partner that I live with and I have been with for 14 years, he's my best friend in the whole wide world. He's a veteran. And when I got with him, as the person that I am, I could not fathom someone being in the medical community to that degree, to be strapped in so tightly and to be so indebted to them in ways that when I first met him, he was taking 37 pills a week. 37 pills a week. And for things like cholesterol, high blood pressure, and I told him, I kept saying, babe, did no one tell you that some celery will help that? And there's some viable things that you can eat. And I would tell him that, you're feeding your body these chemical pharmaceutical stuff, which I'm not knocking them. The way my grams taught me was there is only so much that the earth and plant medicine can do. There is a time when you need the medical community, but it is a trauma. That is what they're best at, is the trauma.
Yeah.
If I have a broken arm, there is no amount of comfrey or anything that I can put that is going to fix that bone.
Oh, actually, my teacher Susan broke her arm in Costa Rica and actually managed to heal it without any medical person. She was in the jungle.
It's phenomenal.
It was amazing. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah. And so,
car accident, something like that, right?
Right. And so when I was talking to my partner, we were talking about there are certain things that this vessel has in it. There's a reason for everything that you have. Your pineal gland, your thyroid, everything is a perfectly bioorganic machine that works in precision. It is perfection when it gets here. Yes. Everything after that point is up to the person that is actually inhabiting it and how you treat it.
Right.
And when he told me that they radiated his thyroid at 22, and the thought behind it was because it takes too much time for the soldiers to swallow a pill or eat a balanced meal or get celery. And so, when I looked at this, for me, it was a whole new way of seeing how far off the track so many people were.
Right.
And so my calling right now is I get called by a lot of veterans. There's a lot of baby boomers out there who are really ex-hippies.
Yeah.
They were born and bred of this earth and they were treated. And now that they have given service to what they believe is their calling, most of them believe it is a calling that they were called to do.
Yes.
But now that their vessel is showing the ravage and the wear and tear of a lifetime here and the way that it was treated, even in its calling, they wanted to come back. They want to come back to what they remembered, what they envisioned. And so And it's very hard living in Florida. I've lived a lot of places. Am I a certified doula in the fact that there is a certificate program? Yes, I did take that. But I went to Estonia, and I studied under the actual death doulas. In Estonia, there's 1 million people. It's a very small country. But every citizen, when they're born, is given a doula by the government.
Nice.
A birthing doula that carries the midlife, that carries all the way. They know the community. They know everybody in that community. And so for me, I think you brought up a very good point. What can death doulas do? For me, I do what families can't do who live in Chicago or live in California, and they don't have the money or the means, or their lives are just so busy that they can't be here for every appointment. They can't be here for every reading of Right. So I step in. I sit there and I listen. That's what I do best. And when when I hear something that the doctors say, I'm like, okay, you said your piece. Now we're going to listen to what the patient wants, because they are the most important people in the room.
That's right.
They're the ones with terminal illnesses, or worse, chronic long-term illnesses like ALS, MS. And we forget that there is once upon a time we had community. We were all living in the same neighborhoods pretty much. We all came together. Over the course of time in society, isolation is the number one factor in this country. We are so isolated. And did COVID have a part of it? Absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. If there was ever a time for a species to sit up and take notice, that was it. To notice how fragile we are and how important it is to actually pay attention to the vessel before a pandemic hits, before your collective herd gets wiped out. And, people ask me all the time, what is your stance on vaccines? This is my stance on vaccine. I was given one vaccine as a child, and that was the polio vaccine. That's what my grams and my mother were most concerned about, that they would not be able to, even with their experience, 9, 10 children. My mom, my grams had 9 children too. My mom had 10 children. So that was an awful lot of people that, my grams and my mom felt responsible for. Plus, they were now coming into a more modern world where some of the things that we did on the reservation, some of the medicines that we gave our elders to help them transition peacefully, they became outlawed. They became dangerous class 2 narcotic substances.
Right.
So there was a pivot that my grams and my mom had to do. But they never deviated from, reminding me that the person that gets the shocking news. And then we won't even talk about the family. People say, well, their daughter should be here more. Have you walked in that daughter's shoes?
Right.
Do you have
any judgment? It's not an exercise in judging the family.
No. And we have to stop the blame game. We have to stop that. That gets us nowhere. Right. Yes, I can say that, hospice can only do so much, like you were saying. Yeah. But what people don't acknowledge is hospice is the only game in town in this country right now. It's the only one up. Now, do I agree with it? No, because I absolutely believe one size does not fit all. That is not how we, as existential spiritual forces or life forces, are meant to live. But I also believe too that it's a system that has done pretty darn well up until a little while ago. There are very caring people in hospice. The nurses, for the most part, have the same calling I do. They just chose a system that they could actually work for and be a part of. I am an independent. worker. I work with people with hospice all the time. For two reasons. Not because I'm some ex-nurse or anything like that. The reason I get called in is because I have a voice that I don't mind voicing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I won't back down from some guy who's got a degree on his wall that says he knows all, ends all.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy. I can, for everything that you say you have progressed in the pharmaceuticals, I can go back to a plant medicine that you had to use to get that pharmaceutical.
Exactly right.
So I
Exactly.
don't want to hear that crap out of your mouth.
Right.
And, you know, the other thing is I don't want to hear you gaslight or patronize this person.
That's right.
And the third thing I always tell the doctor is, so tell me, how many people have you actually walked to death, doc? Tell me how you know exactly what that transition looks like. I guarantee you don't.
Right.
You shucked it off to the nurse. And the nurse, she did everything in her kind compassion. And then the hospice nurse came in. So don't talk to me when I'm sitting in your office and you're saying things that go against everything. And the proverbial thing that I love when I tell people, well, you know what if they want to do voluntary stoppage of eating and drinking? What if they're looking at a MAID navigation? And in Florida, we don't have any law that has been passed for MAID, but we do have legislation coming up. We do have senators that want it. We do have House representatives that will back the bill. And as of last year, there was a poll done in Florida, and 89% of politicians and even some physicians are coming around. We're still holding out on the religious community, but we do have the general population. And the numbers were impressive. 82% of people said they would actually embrace something along the lines of medical aid and dying. And this comes about for two reasons. One, anybody who tells me that we are not in a crisis with caregivers is absolutely out of tune and out of touch. We have more dying people than we have caregivers in this country, bottom line. And that number is going to grow. Right now, we're at about 60 million. By 2040, there's going to be 88 million dying people in this country. Mm. And we don't have, we have a generation, what we're calling the sandwich generation. And the sandwich generation is exactly that. They're caught in the middle. They're trying so hard to make ends meet and keep food on their table and everything, that they are sandwiched so tightly that they can't do what you said. They can't go be with their loved ones in Florida, or they can't get to every surgery that their mom or dad or somebody has.
Right.
Gap, huge gap coming up in our system.
It is a huge gap. And one of the things that I think, at least, and I'll address this only because I have a finance background. I also usually women outlive men typically. Mm-hmm. So, and then typically the husband's Social Security was much larger than the wife's Social Security. And so after the husband passes, she'll get a small bump, but she won't get a giant bump. No. And so what happened in my mom's case was that she was attempting to live off of her Social Security. And so as a result, she was eating really crap food like Meals on Wheels and, whatever was the cheapest. And I'm sure that didn't really build her health. And had I known then what I know now, she was sitting on 100% of equity in her house. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with is, gee, I'd like to die at home, but I just don't have the resources, but you might. So if anybody is in that, I just want to say, if anybody is in that situation, like my mom, you can really improve the quality of your life through a reverse mortgage. And that's something that I'd be happy to chat with you about, the pros and cons of what you might be able to do to improve. Because, if I had known that, I would have done that, helped my mom do that. and gotten her somebody to, better food, first of all, and an in-home attendant, right? That would be there, not just twice a week or once a week or something like that. So all I'm saying is, in today's world, the financials are often a big factor. And so people don't really think about that. I didn't know about it, so I'm just throwing it out there as an option. So if you know anybody like is eating cat food or Meals on Wheels and owns their home, please give me a call and maybe I can help.
Well, one of the things, like you said, the financial thing, that's just something I'll hit real quick. Most of the families that I work for, like I said, are veterans. So there is a restricted income a lot of times. But what I also want to say too is I do not come from a background of finance. I have always, but I was not raised as a money. That's one thing that neither my grams or my mom did. We never factored in money. Believe it or not, for most of the life till I was like 17 and I left home, 16, 17, everything was bartered in our lifetime. We had X amount of cows that were going to the market. X would stay with us. And then we traded out with the farmer down the street for X amount of bushels of whatever we didn't grow. Yeah. So for me, visually, money was never it was always bartering. It was being a part of the community. It was the community was going to build what, we couldn't fork out with dollars and cents, as my mom and dad would say. Being a farmer is not a glorious millionaire type gig. Not if you do it right.
Oh, no. And there's no vacation. I mean, we heard during my apprenticeship.
Like I said, for a lot of my families that I work with now, so many of them, not only do they have to deal with their loved one dying, and a lot of times the caregivers now have lost their income because they can't go to work. And then they look at moms and dads' finances. And a lot of times by the time they get there, moms and dad finances are a mess just due to the lack of being able to stay on top of it, their illnesses, just everything that has become overwhelming.
Yeah.
And
it's better if you do it before, but unfortunately a lot of people don't plan ahead. But yeah, I actually recommend at the age of 55, people start to
I have most of my death talks that I do now are not to baby boomers. Most of the death talks that I talk to are millennials and the next generation coming up. Why? Because when I had my first child at the age of 17, me being a death doula that I was, a death walker that I am, I had a death plan put together not only for me, but also for my daughter, which come to notice, my daughter died before I did. She died at 17.
Oh, so sorry.
She wouldn't, and I thank everyone for condolences and everything, but I'm okay with it. And people ask me, why are you okay with it? Because when this child was born, I knew immediately she wasn't here for this world very long. She reminded me of those huge hydrogen stars that burn so bright, but they burn through their fuel like nobody's business, and they're done.
Right.
And 17 was her magic number. She was done at 17. And she would say things. 5 years old, she'd come home and she'd say, I'm exhausted living here on Earth. And I'd be like, you are 5 years old. And then I would go, no, she's not. Listen to what this spiritual being is telling you. And so, we'd go. And then I remember she turned 9 years old and she decided she was going to turn into a dolphin because she thought dolphins were the most intelligent, most excellent species to be in the whole galaxy. She wanted to be a dolphin. So we worked very hard on that mind challenging. I want to be a dolphin. I want to be a dolphin. Make me a dolphin. And she looked at ways that heal her, all this stuff. And then when her birthday came, we were finished with it. And she looked up at me and she said, Mom, do you ever wonder what the other dimensions are like? She said, I'm going to go to every one of them and I'll let you know. And I knew when she was 9 years old that I didn't know when, but I knew that this would be a child of mine that I would not ever see walk down the aisle or have grandchildren or anything like that. And yes, she took her, what people deem as suicide, which I hate that word. And I think we need to reevaluate the whole taking of one's life is not a sinful act or doom and gloom to be in some purgatory, deal. There is not only science behind it, but there's also ancient cosmic metaphysical stuff that we don't comprehend yet. Our brains haven't gotten enough information to give it its proper category, other than saying, oh, it's suicide, oh, it's mental illness, oh, it's severe depression. I disagree with that. A lot of times when I'm talking to people and they tell me, especially one of the people that I'm dealing with right now, they have the manic, they have that bipolar 2 that we've labeled as, and they get so down on themselves. And when they get so down on themselves, I notice certain things. I notice they start letting the medical people take advantage of them. I notice they start letting every other system take advantage of them. I notice they stop taking care of their vessels and paying attention to mindfully focusing. And so I often tell them, think of it this way. What if being bipolar is something like a sixth sense? What if it is something so fierce and so cosmically aligned, like telekinesis or something like that? I said, and we just haven't had the genius yet to explain how powerful. I said, do you know that when most people do the bipolar 2 and they go into that manic phase, that's a genius stage?
I think
they
that
enter into a stage of complete, I believe they go to another dimension for a little while. And it exhausts every bit of the vessel's energy that they come back. And that's when they call it the crash and burn period, because that spiritual essence, that bipolar label mental health illness, it's a gift. We just haven't figured out how to make it earthbound, if you will.
Right. And we've been convinced that it's defined as this or that thing, as opposed to in a more broader way. Now,
and it's always a negative connotation that we've got to fill up with pills.
Yeah, right. And we're going to have to take another break, but we're going to carry on this fascinating conversation with Deathwalker Paula as soon as we come back. So
I'm having a great time.
All right, perfect.
All right.
Hi, this is Kimberly Crail, KC, the Wise Woman Herbalist, and I'm excited to announce the availability of my foundational class, Introduction to Herbal Medicine and Your Wise Healer Within. In these times, there are so many choices, so many voices. Eat this, but not that. Take this and that. Conflicts arise. What's right for me, you might be asking yourself. It can be very confusing. How do I choose from all these different options? It seems like everything works for some of the people some of the time. So how do we explain that? When I discovered herbal medicine and the ancient secrets of the 7 medicines in 2008, it changed my life. And based on my shamanic herbal apprenticeship in 2008, I was able to support my best friend's terminal to miracle journey from a terminal stage 4 cancer diagnosis in 2009 to a miraculous recovery against all odds. And she's still with us today. And she credits the herbs, the foods, and the other important aspects of the 7 medicines. In this class, you're going to discover how powerful you really are, how you're created perfect and whole and holy, and how nourishment is the key that unlocks that. Health of spirit, health of mind, health of body. Healing's an inside job. I can't do it for you. You're the only person who can heal you. But I'm here to support you on this journey and to give you some simple techniques and the 6 steps of healing to guide you on your own healing journey. 5.5 hours of information. It's packed with powerful tips, and it's designed to help you remember what's already in your cells, in your DNA. So it's packed with powerful tips and techniques that you can use in your own kitchen. Because sometimes we do need medicines and we have to go beyond nourishment. So in this class, I'm going to teach you how to make herbal medicine right in your own kitchen at a fraction of the price you'd pay for it if you were to buy it. And we're also going to cover herbal first aid for those accidents that tend to happen. And we're also going to talk about the safety of some popular programs and diets. And probably most exciting of all, I'm going to share with you the astonishing power of minerals and how you can drink your way to health. So will you join me? Please register at the links below or go to my website, ancientmotherwisdom.com. Green blessings. Hi, welcome back to Weeds of Wisdom. It's Tuesday, October 7th, and I'm having a fascinating discussion with Deathwalker Paula about life and death and how we're all created perfect and whole and holy, and how nature has everything that we need in great, great abundance. And I just wanted to share with you, Paula, as I was talking about, this is the 6 steps of healing and the 7 medicines in our tradition that I teach in my class. And it really starts with a first do no harm. And we use the, in native and indigenous tribes, medicines have a different meaning than we have assigned to them. So medicine is anything that's healing. Okay. So, and there are all kinds of medicines, right? The plants and the foods are medicines, but there are also mind and energy medicines, and right. And so because there's so many different choices now, and there's so many different, everybody's got a pill or a something, and especially if you get a terminal diagnosis, what's going to happen is everybody's going to be coming out of the woodwork, well-meaning in a loving way, and saying, oh, well, my friend did this and I did that and I heard about this. And trust me, your hair is going to be blown back and you're going to have a very stressful time. So the first step, whether it's terminal or not, is to bathe in serenity medicine and just be still and do nothing at all and try to breathe, just calm yourself, right? And connect with your source within, with your God, with your spirit, with whatever archetype is comfortable for you. And then the next step is just a low-tech collection of information, and that's the story medicine. Diagnosis is a story, but you don't need a diagnosis to heal. So oftentimes you're looking for what story is the body looking to get your attention about, what aspect of your story, because when we manifest dis-ease, it's really an attempt by the body to let us know that something is not right. And that something isn't not right in the body. It's actually coming from a spirit or a mind place. And so that's where it needs to be healed, from the spirit or mind place. And so we've seen people that have healed completely with no medical interventions whatsoever, using the next one, which is mind medicine, the placebo effect. And we've also seen people throw everything imaginable at problems and still not heal. And so, it really has a lot to do with how you look at a thing. So, I forget the who said this originally, is some Indian, I believe, but pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So how you look at a thing changes it. And the example I always use is when I was out harvesting stinging nettle with my apprentice sister, and the stinging nettle plants are 6 feet tall and they're stinging away, and it's hot, and I'm complaining, and I'm ow, 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 it hurts. And my apprentice sister just looks over and she goes, oh, I think of it more like energy than pain. And in that instant, it changed, right? Ooh, now it's energy. Ooh, now we can play with it. Ooh, now it's a whole different thing. And so this is the power of mind medicine, right? When you're engaging with the energy of what it is that you're dealing with. And then the next step is to nourish and tonify your body. And that's lifestyle medicine. That's plants and foods and movement and ceremony and ritual and all of that stuff. And all of those are 100% safe all of the time. And if you don't get the results you need in the time you need, you may need to move further. But as you move further into the medicines 5, 6, and 7, the risk increases. And you're essentially eroding health to restore health. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you so that you can kind of understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about, my approach, or, our approach to how people actually, seek healing, or whatever that might be. So,
Kim, one of the things that catches my attention every time is the do no harm. And everybody, when they talk to me about it, they say, well, they always refer back to the medical community about the Hippocratic Oath. But I have to remind those people that do no harm means you too. Do no harm to you.
Right.
I mean, that is so important. One of the other things, the mind medicine that you were telling me about, when I first get my clients, most of my clients I don't get when they're terminal. I have them when, through the grape. I don't advertise a great deal. Mine is really word of mouth because of the very niche area that I deal with. And the very, I border on Hemlock Society, Kevorkian, and the existential world. So it puts me on the fringe as far as what some death, for what the death movement in this country is about. But that's the beautiful thing about the gap, because I'm not looking for the 100 million people who are going to go through the system the way that the system tells them to go through. I'm looking for the ones that are saying, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to go out on my terms. I want to do it my way. And I don't want my family to be traumatized or financially destroyed, or, in a position where they have no clue what it is that I want. So when I talk to people, especially those that they may have a diagnosis, they may know something is coming down, but they still have 6-9 months before it actually gets to the hospice stage. So I usually get called in about them. And part of my earth medicine that I use is we've all had our astrological charts done over our lifetime. An earth medicine, and some of you have absolutely experienced an earth wheel. You've gone to sweat lodges or something, and you've seen the earth wheel built out of stones, and you've heard elders and shaman and anybody else speak of this. The difference that the way that I was taught to do earth wheel medicine is to do the whole gambit. When someone comes to me and says, I want to die on my terms, I don't want to fear death, we do an earth medicine chart. We go from the moment that you're born, we look at the wind direction, we look at the elements, we look at what your plant totem is, we look at everything. So when it comes to you planning your death, you have a clear picture of the life that you have led as a spiritual being, not as a life vessel. I mean, and the earth medicine chart, it will tell you. I mean, it will tell me the parental abilities, the compassion abilities, the job prospects, all that stuff. But the most important part is it opens up what I consider to mind medicine, for you to start thinking about the spiritual animal that guides you, the plant medicine that you were born into, the clan that is naturally your community.
Right.
What are the benefits of being in a frog clan? What makes them so powerful? Or a raven clan or something. And even though I'm using animals and totems and plant medicine, it goes far more than that. I use those as visuals so people can understand the level that I'm talking about in terms that they can get the education from. And so when I do this, and I've done the earth wheel, I sit down with everybody and I pass it to the daughters and the sons and the aunts and the uncles, and they just kind of go, wow, and I tell people, now, when this person says they want to die on their terms, this is the life they led. So get the mind medicine going. Understand where their mind is right now, what medicine they are following.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell my clients too, and I also tell their family members, all that you are arises from your thoughts.
That's right.
Never forget that. And one of the things that happens when you get the diagnosis, or you're getting an inclination that something, that you have some sort of dis-ease going on, whether it's chronic or just, terminal, that's just going to naturally happen. The one thing that I always tell people is, let the mind do what it's going to do. Let it start bracing and do everything like that. But then you have to have someone in the room, in your circle, in your tribe, whatever you want to call it, that's going to put their hand on your shoulder and say, okay, that's enough. Now breathe. Now stop thinking, stop doing everything, and just remember from here on out, and we should say this that's one thing that my mom would always tell me. When I'd come home and I'd say something like, oh, I don't know, something like, well, I think I'm going to fail my test. My mom would look at me and she would say, why would you even entertain that thought in your head?
Yeah, whatever you say, you're right.
She said, that thought arose from you, so you just put it out there in a vibration. The universe could care less that you said, I'm going to fail my test. What it heard was that vibration of that. And so the universe and the world and our holiness and being perfect, that energy wants to give us everything that we're talking about because we're that blessed.
Yeah.
But it doesn't distinguish between negative and positive. That's only something we do.
If you've turned your dial to that particular frequency, that's what the universe is going, that's what you're going to hear. That's the
feedback you're going to get.
Yeah.
And then you're going to turn around and go, well, I don't know why all this stuff is happening to me.
Yeah, I hate all this stuff. It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
And
I tell people, after you get that shock, that's when you need to start really, the plan isn't what you're going to, don't get me wrong, it's important to know what you're going to do with your house and whether you're going to have the reverse mortgage and all that stuff. But more importantly, that's all external stuff. All that can be worked out. I guarantee you, because I've worked it out for several people. I've put them in touch with people like yourself, Kim, who do the reverse mortgages. Yeah. I've found people to where they can no longer get Meals on Wheels, but I have found someone who is a home chef and she makes tons of extra food. Right. And so she helps me deliver to 40 veterans who would otherwise be stuck with Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, which is also.
So but what is more important than all that stuff is what that person who has the diagnosis, who is going to enter the dying, transitioning, that last legacy of their lifetime. What's more important to address all the issues that they have, but remind them that all that is external and we can find ways to take care of it.
Right.
But before we can do any of that, we have to get you and the family members in a place where we have to make a choice. We have to decide, are we going to look at this like a journey? Are we going to give it ceremony and ritual? Are we going to talk about yes, the vessel may be decaying, it may giving out, but there's so much more than that. That's not the story. That's not the whole story.
Right. What's
The
the
whole story
legacy?
is
What's the memories? What's the legacy?
yes,
What's the thing that you need closure on? What is who do you need
absolutely. And if you're one of those people, and I have had people, I promise you, I've had people that say, I don't need any closure. I've said everything I need to say. I'm done. I'm just waiting on the stupid body to give up. Give up. So, but that's what that is. When I hear people say that, that means that they have that medicine. They have that mental medicine that they used, and it allowed them to come to terms with saying, I'm okay with it. I have accepted what I have and what I'm going to be going through, and I have tools. That's the other thing. Everything that my grams and my mom gave me, yes, it's wisdom, it's ceremony, it's ritual, but more importantly than that, it's a toolbox.
Right.
I get to carry it around for as long as I'm here in this time and place, and I get to share it. Not only do I get to use the tools for myself, but I get to share it with anybody else.
Right.
One of the things that my partner admires most about me is I am 62 years of age. I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have high cholesterol. Do I not eat food? Of course. I indulge in pretty much anything I want to indulge in. The trick is, it's not that I'm eating a bunch of carbs. I don't ever think that I'm going to eat too much sugar and it's going to make my radical cancer cells. I don't think things like that.
Right, exactly. So if you thank and bless your food,
yeah.
Why do you think we sing grace in our tradition?
Yeah.
The silver rain, the shining sun, the fields where scarlet poppies run, and all the ripples of the wheat are in the bread that I do eat. So when I sit for every meal, with thankful heart, I always feel that I am eating rain and sun and fields where scarlet poppies run.
Oh, you remind me of my grams when she'd be out in the garden. She'd sing to all the plants.
Yeah.
And, I used to tell people that because she sang to the corn, I could go rip a piece of corn off and eat it right then and there. I didn't have to cook it. I didn't have to smother it. I mean, the butter and the cooking was good.
Oh, corn is a butter delivery device, darling.
But the fact that I was taught that there was, as a kid, it was magic to me. It really was.
Yeah.
And so back to, like what I was saying, I think that and he always tells me, you don't worry about getting cancer or you don't worry about having a heart attack. I was like, I don't, because I don't think those thoughts. It's not that it's already predestined or anything in my head. Right. It's just, I wasn't taught to bring anything inside this body that would cause it internal damage, not only to the body, but also to the spiritual source or the life source that are in it. They have to be kept sacred.
Yes.
And so, he's like, well, I just don't see how you can be that. He said, you're not worried about, no, because no matter what happens, and I have no control over it, none when my ticket's coming up. The only thing I can tell you is, and this is something everyone has to come to terms, we're all in the queue, people. It's just a matter of when that person answers your phone call.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right.
So why not manifest and use the tools that you're given to be ready for when that time comes? Not in shock, not in panic, not in awe. And some of that is just natural reaction. But
Right.
to what degree is the question that we're,
Right.
the worst thing that I have found for somebody's, not only their physical or their spiritual, but also their mental, is being sky high up here and la-di-da-di-da, and then they get that jaw-dropping news, and now they've sunk 50 vibrations because because they were never taught that those vibrations, you can't live up here your entire life. You have to plan for the crash and burn.
That's true. I also just wanted to share with you some excerpts because I think it's very apt to what we're talking about. Because, when we talk about the walk toward death, I mean, and this is from Susan Weeds. You begin your walk toward death the moment you're conceived. Absolutely. Your life is your walk toward death. And each day your life brings you one day closer to death. Every day you have the opportunity to ask yourself, how will I walk today on my way to death? How will I live? By others' fears or by my own unique truth? In beauty, in joy, with awareness from my heart? Consciously or unconsciously, with acceptance or denial, every day you move one day nearer to your death. Death is not honorable in your dominant Western culture. You set death apart from life, portray death as if it were to be feared, as if it were opposed to life. No, precious granddaughter, no. Death and life are lovers. They are dancing partners. One does not exist without the other. Giving birth gives death, for death comes to all who are born. Death makes way for life, for is it not said that all who die will be reborn? Death and life in loving embrace, death and life dancing, for there is only the dance, only the walk, the path, your way from birth to death and back to birth again.
Absolutely. Yeah, that always hits me deep when I hear that. I remember when my first daughter was born and my mom leaned in and I was holding my daughter, and I imagine this is the same thing that was said to me when they handed my mom. But I remember my mom leaning over to both my daughter and I and saying, "You are legacy, my grandchild. And with your first breath, I honor you, but I also honor that your death clock started ticking today as well." Mm. And I've never forgotten that. One of the things that I was taught as a child, some people say prayers at night, take my soul, all that stuff. We were taught it was still a prayer, but it was more of a ceremony. And so when we got ready to crawl in bed at night, the one thing that we were asked by my grams, in my case, and my mom, was, "Are you okay if you don't wake up in the morning tomorrow? Did you treat the earth kind? Were you good to your brother and sisters? Did you eat good food? Did you learn from your elders?
Right.
What wisdom did you have today that you didn't have yesterday? And are you okay if I give you a kiss on your cheek right now, and if I don't see you in the morning, please understand that kiss goes with you forever."
Right.
And then we were taught the same thing in the morning as we were all getting up and getting ready to go to school. You can only imagine what it's like getting 10 kids off to school. But there was always time. We always came together on Sunday nights for dinner. Every single solitary member of the family. It was non-negotiable, period. It was our community, our tribe time. But in the mornings, my mom and dad, I remember the two of them, sitting and talking and everything. And my mom would say, "You know what? Seeing all the kids and all the rush and getting off and everything to work and you getting them off to school and everything," she said, "I'm okay with that. If that's the extent of my day and I don't see 10 o'clock this morning, I've had a wonderful life. Thank you."
Aww.
And that was just a ritual every day in my family.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very blessed. I absolutely know that I am the abnormal human being in this equation.
Yeah. No kidding. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about my my recent transition experience with my kitty, because I found it quite informative. It about 3 weeks ago, she started to have some issues, and I thought she was going to transition. I thought she'd had a stroke, but she very strong life force, and so it was quite interesting because I took her to the vet, and the vet's like, oh my gosh, we thought she would be dead by now, but it's amazing, and you're not doing any of the sub-Q fluids. I'm like, no. And so anyway, brought her home, and I talked to my animal communicator, and I was like, oh well, it's my mom's cat, so my mom's birthday is coming up. I'm like, oh, mom's there, she'd be very happy to have you back. You were her favorite. And she's like, no, I don't want to go. I can bounce back. I'm strong. But she really couldn't. And so wasn't able to. And so, we explained, look, if you want to stick around, you got to eat and drink, and I got to give you these fluids every day. And she's like, every day? And she didn't like that idea. But anyway, so toward the end, I had spoken to the vet, and I said, look, I don't know. I think she's getting ready to cross, but she's having a hard time. And she's like, look, I'll be back on Saturday. And if you need for me to come to the house and give her a hand, I can do that. And so when we spoke with the animal communicator about it, Miss Sammy says, what time on Saturday? And I said, oh, probably late morning, because her flight gets in at midnight. It won't be early morning. So probably late morning. So what does she do? She transitions at 10:30 a.m.
That's a perfect story. I have 2 kitties right now, and one of them just turned 22, and the other one just turned 19.
Oh yeah.
And one of them is starting to, really get weak and, that kind of stuff. But everybody's like, well, you need to take them to the vet. And I went, if this was a house domesticated kitties that I had, I would. But these are stray cats that came to me when they were 7 years old. They lived in the parks. They lived under bridges.
Right.
And my parents taught me too that nature is a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. If you let nature do its thing, especially, see, animals, they don't have the brain process that we have. They don't get all caught up in fear of dying and everything. Right. It's inherently in their DNA. They accept it.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why elephants travel and go back to the burial grounds, and they die in burial grounds. They know their time is up. They know what plants to eat. They know what water to drink if they need to speed up the process of dying.
Right.
This is just inherent in them.
Right.
And so I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying, well, take her to the vet. And so I took one of them to the vet, and we came back. And after we had this vet, it was like $8,000. And I was like, that baby is 19 years old. Do you know what that's like for a cat?
Yeah.
If she was in the wild, a lion or anything like that, which that's basically where her genes come from, she wouldn't know what cancer of the kidneys is.
No, she wouldn't.
They wouldn't know what chemo is. They wouldn't know what it is to shove something in their mouth. So in my house that I live in, I have all kinds of wonderful plants outside. I have herbs and catnip and wildflowers, and God only knows what else grows in that yard.
I hear that.
But I tell you this much, when I notice my kitties aren't feeling well, I may give them some CBD oil to kind of help them if they're throwing up and stuff. But if I let them outside, those cats know exactly what plants to go nibble on and eat. And yes, they may throw up, but when they come in, they're better, and I'm like you. I have a vet who, will help me transition. And I'm just going to say one more thing on that thing. I think it's horrible that we as human beings, we have much more mercy for our animals than we have for our loved ones. It breaks my heart to know that we have veterinarians, and that's the beautiful thing about veterinarians. Most people don't understand. I am not a big medical person, but I honor vets in two ways. They, in their training, are made to take classes to know death. They take a semester to know what the dying stages that you were talking about, what the emotions what the owner's going to feel, what their grieving processes might look like. They are taught mercy. Right. They are taught this is an animal. Do no harm.
Right.
If you feel it's time and they feel it's time, then you just say the word and they will help you relieve that.
Right.
I think we forget that our loved ones deserve that same integrity, that same dignity, that same autonomy that we give to the animals. And
that's an interesting.
They're not able to fathom all that.
No, that's an interesting, because I actually I'm not a fan. The reason my cats live so long is I have one rule: never go to the vet.
Thank you.
So, because they don't really help them be healthy. And so anyway, so these are my mom's cats. And I also feed them really good food and lots of, water, blah, blah, blah. And I give them my nourishing herbal infusions in their wet food and, all that other stuff. But one of the things that really, she didn't want to have somebody help her. She wanted to do this herself. And she made that very clear. And then the thing that also occurred to me was, like we were talking earlier about how pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. I think that just like the old story about the man who sees the butterfly struggling to get out of the cocoon. And so he goes, oh, well, let me help the butterfly because it's struggling. And what he ends up doing is crippling the butterfly. And so sometimes, I know people don't want to hear this, but sometimes this is part of their process. Because I know when my mom was dying, for example, when they get to that transition phase, they're in and out, they're in both worlds. What's the number 9 and, this and stuff. And then typically they'll have a day or two while they'll be like perfect and normal and energetic. And that'll usually be just a few days before they transition, right?
It's the surge.
The surge. So, I think that there is, or I wonder, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback now. I'm sorry, I don't have my headset working, but I wonder
it's okay. I don't hear it.
Well, yeah, but the recording will.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there isn't some value in terms of just the experience for the dying individual. I mean, the cat chose, right? She knew that if she hadn't made the transition by 11 or 12, that I might be calling the vet.
And I think that's the key word that you use. The cat chose. The cat's soul force, spirit force, and the life force came together and they reckoned together, right?
Right.
And they actively chose. I think sometimes we get caught up in not letting those two merge during the transition. And I think that's what I describe as suffering. There is pain. I mean, I can honestly tell you, I had 3 biological children and mine were all natural, but I was one of those women that every other woman hates. My first child, at 16, nonetheless, almost 17, I was in labor less than 25 minutes.
Well, you were probably on a birthing stool too.
Absolutely. And then the second child came faster. And then my third child, well, I just showed up at my birthing doula and we just started the process. We weren't waiting.
Whoops. I know there's a midwife named Bauhaus wife, and she has, I don't know, have you seen her videos? She actually has videos of her giving birth on the bed. And, it's just like, I don't know how many kids she has now, but she's like, really, look, and that's the thing. And I think we're going to wrap up here shortly, but I think it's really important for people to understand that life, being born, for women, menarche, which when we start bleeding, and menopause, or childbearing and menopause, and then death, those are all natural processes. Mm-hmm. This is not, there's not something wrong with women once they start bleeding or once they stop bleeding. It's not a disease that need to be managed. We are created perfect. We're created whole, and we're created holy, and we are eternal beings. So
I couldn't agree with you more.
So, it's unfortunate that we've had so much indoctrination, and bless our veterans, because we got to face the military is the biggest, one of the biggest indoctrination centers on the planet, as well as our schools and our medical schools.
I was going to say education is a close second.
But the point is that I think we have an opportunity. I feel that, particularly the community of women are starting to speak. And as the Hopi say, when the grandmothers are heard, the earth will heal.
Yes.
And so I think that, it's really all good.
It is.
And the more that we hold that thought of seeing others in their wholeness, seeing our planet in its wholeness, and practicing what I call unconditional love, which is, I love you so much, I don't care what you think. We can disagree and still love one another.
Absolutely.
I may not be an advocate for medical assistance in dying. I'm very concerned about what I see happening in Canada right now with that program, and particularly now that they're trafficking in the organs. So I see that with our current systems and incentives, that will go wildly awry in ways that we don't anticipate. So I'm a bit concerned about that. But that doesn't mean that we can't love each other, is my point.
No. I think everything that humans do in this place and time, everything that comes to fruition, everything that we manifest has two paths. We have the open-minded, kind, compassionate, where we take into heart a collective as whole, what we call positive, unconditional, joyful. But there's always going to be the other side where people are going to take advantage. Their greed is going to come in. They're just going to be ugly human beings, period. They're going to abuse the system. They're going to abuse their fellow citizens.
Right.
What I love about medical aid and dying is, first of all, one of the reasons that I enjoy medical aid and dying is because I grew up in a community where we didn't have hospice ever. My first time watching a hospice experience was when I was 29 years old. I had never seen a medical community come into the sanctuary of a home before. Never. That just wasn't something that would be like, especially since in my community, the medical community, their intention was never to heal, never to manage me, to take control. So for us, when my grandmother said she was done, her kidneys were failing. She was in constant pain. But pain wasn't inevitable. She went through it. We had our herbal medicine people come, and they gave her tonics and everything.
Right.
But the simple fact is, we never once told her, ever. When she said, I'm gone in 2 weeks, nobody fought her. Nobody said, oh, please don't go.
Right.
Oh, let us call hospice in. They can make it last longer.
Right.
That was never in my growing up. And
because they see that it's actually a beautiful thing.
Yes.
When you transition, you release all of that resistance, and you're right back to source. I mean, it's great.
I'm not saying that my mom and my grams and the people in my family didn't have pain. Absolutely, they had pain.
Right.
But they didn't suffer.
Right. Exactly.
They weren't told, and they weren't cattle driven into hospice. oh, that's the only way to go.
Yeah.
You know, my mom went through stoppage
That's what the
eating and
insurance
drinking.
covers. But see, that's what the insurance covers. And
That-
so this
that's
goes
right.
back to the financing thing,
That's
which is
right.
why I'm saying to people, you may have other options that,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the whole circle that and again, medical aid in dying is just the tip of the iceberg. Here's the way that I was always taught. First of all, my gram said, we were raised on the idea of the 2,000-year culpas that go on, as people call them, culpas, and we are coming to the end of a 2,000-year culpa with the patriarchy.
Yeah.
It's dying. All the systems, all the foundations, everything that we have put up in mankind over the last, in this country, for 250 years. It's crashing and it's burning. And that's not something to freak out about, because as my grams and everything reminded me, everything crumbles, everything dies.
Yeah.
But what is left and what will rise from that, that's the mental medicine right there.
That's breathtakingly beautiful to behold.
And it's the new, and we call it the dawning of the Aquarius. But the next 2,000 years coming is the rise of the matriarch, the females coming back.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that kind of energy since, God, the early 1600s, late 1600s. Do you know that in most indigenous tribes, it wasn't the men who held the power with the land. It was the women.
I know. The Seneca, or the Iroquois, part of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Great Peaceful Nations, the way they were organized was that they had a chief, a male chief, and he ran the men. The warriors did all their training, hunting, etc. And then there was a council of grandmothers, and they actually ran the whole tribe, including approving or disapproving of whatever the chief was doing. They always had the final say, and they were always, the eldest, the elders, because they had the wisdom. And because for whatever reason, and we'll talk about that at another time, or you can watch my Dale Allen episode and check it out. But sometimes men get stuck in that left lobe and they can't get out of it. And the interesting thing is that women's brains look identical, but we have a unique ability to do cross lobe neuron firing patterns. In other words, we can draw from both the right and the left hemispheres of our brains. Our male counterparts can only go within a particular lobe. So sometimes it's, and we're designed to work together, right? My body worker friend says, oh, well, men and women, it's like the woman is this giant paddle wheel. It's this engine on it. And then the male is the rudder, because the women are generating the female is generating the energy and the male is focusing it, because let's face it, ladies, sometimes we can go ourselves in circles.
And when I say rise of the matriarch, I'm not dishing men or anything. I'm just saying that there is a powerful, strong drive when it comes to that female energy that is more collectively based, where the patriarch is more individual based.
Right. And
it's more ego based.
Right. And what I think is
the two of them together, when they're working in cohesion, when you honor and respect the male energy, and because everybody has both energies in them, it's like the proverbial whichever wolf you feed will be the strongest wolf.
Right.
That's the same thing. My energy is predominantly feminine matriarch energy. But boy, I got male energy, because put me in a room with medical doctors who want to gaslight my patient. No.
Well, and I've really been making a conscious effort to get away from calling the left brain the male brain and the right brain the female brain, and masculine, feminine. I'm really attempting to make it more general, like yin and yang, like power with as opposed to power over, because the power over is a static. It's holding back the flow of energy, Whereas if you look at the yin yang, it's spinning endlessly in dynamic disequilibrium, and a piece of the other isn't contained in each. And so, and the reason I want to get away from masculine and feminine is very simple. I don't know a single heterosexual male that would be excited to get in touch with his feminine brain.
And
but
see, I think,
but what I'm saying is, and I think that those are so, high heels and pantyhose were masculine in the 1700s in France. So I think those are too changeable. So what I like to do is say, look, let's look at it as, these polarities, these
I like
energies, that. Right? But as opposed to, oh, that's masculine, that's feminine.
I don't really attribute masculine and feminine to the brain. I don't attribute it to anything physical. I think it's beyond that. I think it's vibrations. I think it's resonance. Yeah. There's a resonance, masculine vibration that vibrates the cosmic, that rudders the entire industry of the universe.
Right.
And then there's a vibration of the female, or whatever that other energy is. And I think they're vibrations. And I think the cosmos interweaves and connects and puts them both together. So there's the power of new galaxies and parallel universes that one vibration causes.
Right.
And then there's the slow and steady rudder that says, okay, we can't pop out too many of those parallel universes because then it's not balanced.
Right.
There's not that yin and yang that you speak of.
Right, exactly.
But I am also the type of person that, as much as I honor my bioorganic vessel that I have been blessed to be given, I don't attribute a whole lot of the mental medicine or my spiritual force, even my life force, doesn't really hinge on too much of attributing my metaphysical to the body, even though I know it can be through chakras and stuff like that. I think it's a matter of, if you have the mental medicine and your spiritual force are not on top of, but if they are in alignment, then the body falls in line too.
Right.
It's always been in line. It's the mental and the spiritual that knock everything out. The body was born perfect.
Completely agree. And that's exactly why I start with spirit and connecting with spirit, because once you're connected in that energetic way to your source, your whatever you want to call the higher power, and then you can actually use your mind as a tool, right, in terms of managing the energy and engaging the energy. Yeah. And then it's a beautiful dance with the body, because it's like, everything's like, ooh, we're grooving and moving. So I think that, it's been such a beautiful time spending here with you, Paula. Thank you so much. And
well, thank you for having me.
You're local here, so we're definitely going to go have some coffee, and I'll
absolutely
nourishing herbal infusion.
I'd love to.
And some, we'll have a tea party, so that'll be very.
And I'm so happy that Lisa brought us together. I mean, she is just a phenomenal soul, and
she is.
I am overly abundantly joyful with all the connections that I have, and keep making these connections. It's cosmically divine, and I know who my tribe is, and
it is.
That's fabulous.
It really is. And so thank you so much. And I honor the work that you're doing. And it's not easy work. And, but women have been washing the cooling bodies of the dead for thousands of years. And so thank you for carrying on that tradition. I honor you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to throw in one short plug here.
Yeah.
October is my Death Shroud month, and usually I don't put anything online about death shrouds or anything, because I believe it's very sacred and it's personal. And once I throw it on the instrument of the internet, it corrupts what I believe is ritual and ceremony. So what I put together, folks, is I'm going to do a fake death shroud.
Okay.
And I'm going to go through the tips and steps and stuff as to why I think it is the absolute most beautiful way to send your loved one off. I mean, but anyways, that's my plug. It's my
That's
favorite time of the
beautiful.
year, October. So that's what I'm
Okay.
going to do.
And the best way for people to contact you, I know you're in Florida, in Pinellas.
I'm in Gulfport, Florida, just
Gulfport,
outside of
Florida.
St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if people are in the local area and maybe want to retain you for a loved one or for their family, what's the best way to contact you? On Facebook?
They can go to my website, which is Deathwalker Paula at GoDaddySites.com.
Okay.
And then you can
that
also
didn't
get
work
in
for
touch
me
with
earlier, just so you know. Yeah, that didn't work for me earlier. I got a 404 error when I tried to go there. So
it's Deathwalker. Sometimes it comes up as Death Doula. It's
okay.
DeathwalkerPaula.com.
Deathwalker Paula. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All
And
right.
the other way, the simplest way, if you want to get hold of me, is just drop me an email at adamspaula90@gmail.
AdamsPaula90@gmail. Okay.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch
Great.
with me.
I'll put that in the show notes for people as
Yeah,
well.
I answer them every day. And truthfully, if you can't remember any of that, just get hold of the Florida Death Doula Association and say, you want the weirdest death walker on board. Everybody will say, look for Paula.
That's perfect. I love that. All right, my dear.
Thanks again, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Really great.
Really great too. And we'll have to have you back on here.
Thank you. I'd love
sometime
that.
in the spring. All right. Thank you.
I'd love that.
All right. So that about does it for us here tonight on Weeds of Wisdom. And I look forward to being back with you next week. And thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage you to support herbal medicine. It is the people's medicine. And I'm not selling products. I'm basically teaching you how to make your own. So go to ancientmotherwisdom.com or check on the Unnext Network and take my class. All right. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, beautiful week.